Hi Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You recently travelled to the US, which is the biggest market for so-called robo-advice. Can you tell me a little bit about the evolution of robo-advice and what you learned about it compared to traditional advisors?
Well, robo-advice in the US started about 2003, but the big growth has certainly happened between 2015 and 2017, and that's when the major banks in the US have invested in robo-advice. There are about 200 robo-advice solutions in the US at the moment, which makes the US the biggest market. The next biggest modern country to that is Germany, with 31 robo-advisors. But in comparison, the robo-advice market is still relatively small versus traditional advice. Robo-advice in the US has got $200 billion under advice versus the traditional advice market of $27 trillion. So you can understand how it's still quite small. It is emerging, and traditional financial advisors see robo-advice as certainly a way to help them gain scale. They certainly don't see it as a threat, but they see it as an essential requirement of their business if they want to grow and they want to have connection with all parts of the market, not just the older generation.
Given the rising importance of millennials in terms of spending power and wealth in coming years, how critical is leveraging technology becoming for financial advisors of all stripes?
Well, all financial advisors need to leverage technology because the main aspect of financial advisors' business growing is they're more efficient. And for them to be more efficient, they need to use technology and tools like robo-advice. But there's still a perception with millennials, only 55% of them are saying that robo-advice is something they would consider alongside a financial advisor. But yet the high net worth millennials, so under 45s, 70% of them are saying they absolutely want robo-advice as part of their solution, but not the total solution. People still want to have the expert being an individual that they can rely on, but they want the technology and the efficiency that robo-advice provides them because they're used to dealing in social media and they're used to having technology at their hands. So they're wanting a mixture, and the estimates is that will continue to be more focused on robo-advice in the coming years.
Best of both worlds.
That's right.
And how does social media play a role for financial advisors going forward? I mean, given, as you mentioned, the dominance of these platforms in our lives.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time looking at the top 100 financial advice businesses in the US, and every one of them has got a social media strategy. Now that strategy is either a Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook strategy, and what they're using it to do is deliver their message, deliver their value proposition, and using it to strengthen their network and their reach in the marketplace to get more people wanting to come into their firms.
Beyond technology, talk me through some of the other major developments that are becoming clear in the US. We're seeing things like a shift of advisors becoming more like, financial coaches, or they're being goal orientated, they're incorporating health. There's a rising demand for female advisors. So talk me through some of that.
Yeah, well, that's interesting considering this is the week of International Women's Week. Yeah. Women financial advisors are certainly the winners in the US, short term and long term. And that's because women are outliving men 10 years. I don't know whether they're killing off their husbands on purpose, but women are outliving men. And when their husband's dying and they've left with all this wealth, they've got no financial knowledge because their husband has always looked after their wealth. And they don't feel comfortable going in talking to an older male. So there is a big shift in the US market about practices and education programs about financial literacy for women, so they come into this market, but also educating women who will eventually be left on their own. What does it look like, and what does the role wealth should play and the education they should have. And then the other big trend is financial advisors really positioning themselves. And they're positioning themselves around being totally goal-based, being a financial therapist. I mean, everyone in America has a therapist for something, and now instead of having a financial advisor, they have a financial therapist.
It's the new buzzword.
It is, and it's all about health and wellness. So the financial advisors, the successful ones, aren't talking about what are their wealth goals. They're talking about what are their lifestyle goals and what are their health goals and what are their happiness goals. really in wrapping up in that therapy way, rather than talking about numbers and talking about how much do you need to save to get to where you want. They're refocusing the conversation on where do you want to be and how do we get you there, and what are the different aspects that can get you there, including your wealth strategy, but not solely focusing on the wealth strategy.
So it's almost a bit more of a holistic look at it. And do you see, any of these trends playing out in Australia at all?
Absolutely. I deal with the whole of the Australian financial market, and there's a lot of people that are really, a lot of firms really now focusing on trying to attract women, to not only be back office educating, but also to be front client facing, because there's they're trying to develop women to be financial literature and having conversations and trying to build up the client base. And certainly the trend is certainly emerging here for financial advisors to talk more about wealth strategies, but more about whole of life strategies with their clients. And I think that trend will continue to rise as this becomes a more worldwide trend, and financial advisors get a better name in the marketplace and become more value add to a client's life perspective, rather than just a small part of what they require in terms of preparing for retirement and preparing for when they finish work, or how they spend their superannuation.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
That's my pleasure.